soaking nuts and seeds. How actually do you do that, and how do you use them afterwards? I would assume that when you soak the nuts, you can just soak them, drain it off, and then eat them. What about seeds, flaxseed and chia seeds and whatever? What's the best way to eat those?
Gabriel, why don't you take that?
Well, okay. So it's important to soak nuts and seeds. It gets out a lot of the phytins, things that block the activity. So soaking, as was mentioned also by Nick, is really important to do. So that's number one piece there. I like to soak them in at least 3% hydrogen peroxide. Why? Because there's often on the nuts and seeds, particularly walnuts, there's a tendency to have more fungus. So, and that kind of oxygenates it too. So that's another consideration. How long? Well, generally we soak it overnight. It's no big deal. You just soak it overnight. But that's the point I'm making. So you can do it overnight or you can do it for a half hour. I prefer do it at night, prepare your food, let it soak overnight. So that's kind of the simple answer. Now, chia seeds, it's different. Use really high quality water and they kind of turn to a gel, which is actually good for bowel function and so forth. And chia seeds are very, again, high in the long chain omega-3s.
Short chain
omega-3. Sorry, they don't.
But if you get enough of them,
long chain. Yeah.
But if you get enough of them, your body makes all the EPA and DHA that you need and all the other derivatives.
That's what was in my mind when I said that. That's
I read your mind.
Yeah, thank you. So
remember, you have to forgive this guy. He's in the middle of the night.
It's 4:30 a.m.
Holy smokes.
Not quite the middle, but thank you. So anyway, the point is, it's really simple. And I strongly recommend you soak your nuts and seeds. It just pulls the toxins and also the phytins out of it. So they're much more assimilated.
Max, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Yes, I am from California. Many of you say that you should not take oil unless you have deficiency in omega-3. I take daily 5 tablespoons of grind flaxseed, but still have a severe deficiency of omega-3, score 1 out of 5. How would you recommend to improve it?
Take oil. It's simple. You know, when I did my test, I could not get enough omega-3 just from seeds alone. So take the seeds because there's really good nutrition. If you need more, then you take it in a more concentrated form. Then you take it as an oil, but the oil needs to be made with health in mind because omega-3s and 6 are very easily damaged. So you can't just do it with canola oil or soybean oil because they're damaged oils. So it has to be done. They basically have to be made with health in mind. And by the way, the other thing is that when you take algae for DHA, those algae are not coming out of the ocean. In the ocean, they only have 4% fat. They're grown in tanks. And then the oil is made with the same Drano window washing acid, bleached and fried, like the cooking oils are. So it is better to get your omega-3s from plant-based sources. And if you optimize your intake, your body will do the conversion from infancy, from pre-infancy to old age. But every cell that has a nucleus has the genes to do it, and the body knows how to do that. And the research that they showed that men don't convert was actually done wrong. That's a long story, so I don't want to get into it, but I think it's an important point to make.
I think it's important when you soak your nuts and seeds that after they start to sprout and you've poured off the anti-enzyme property, as I mentioned with nuts, you see this brownish color. That should be poured off. According to Dr. Howell, that actually depletes your enzymes and was done with animal studies. It harmed the animals. So we pour that off, and that's why the anti-enzyme allows seeds to exist and nuts from Egypt, 4,000 years old, and they germinate once they get exposed to water. So you do have to germinate. And then I agree. I think the hydrogen peroxide mixed in with the water, what 3% you mentioned, Gabriel, but I would also say that I put mine in the refrigerator. I noticed that after they've sprouted, they last a lot longer. And I do a lot of broccoli sprouts. And I do lentil bean sprouts, and I just really mix it up. And then I put those into my big salads. My salads are humongous. They're as big as ancient African cultures where they need a huge bowl of food. And Dr. Burkitt proved that they were free of digestive disorders, heart disease, cancer. The bigger the poops, the lower the disease rates, right? So frequent bowel movements, 100 to 120 grams is my goal, but usually I border on about 60 grams of fiber a day, just even pushing to get jicama, certain vegetables, just extraordinarily high in fiber, green papaya high in fiber. And you'll notice after you eat these foods, you're able to excrete bowel movement almost after every meal, 3 or 4 times a day. So I think the soaking and putting them in the refrigerator helps, because then it preserves them, and I pull them out and put them into my mixed foods. And I'm always got live food going along with my cooked crock pot, which I keep going for 3 days or longer, because people don't like beans because they cause gas. But if you cook them long enough, the lectins disappear and you can absorb them and tolerate and get all the benefit of those beans as well. So your diet should be very mixed up. And I would be remiss if I didn't say you must have some kind of a probiotic food, some kind of a fermented food. I have some fermented string beans here. I have fermented chilies. I have fermented jicama, all kinds of fermented things. I'm lucky I live up the street from Fermented Farms. They do it all for me. That's a lot of work. I taking the time to do fermented yogurt and coconut yogurt, never dairy yogurt, right? So all these things are critical. It's equally as important what you don't put in your body as what you put in your body, but you've got to get, like our ancient relatives ate about 700 different biodiversity fibers. We're lucky to figure out 30 different fibers of food. So, just remember that biodiversity, the juicing, and I think, again, putting cold pressed juice from these big $30,000 machines that do a better job than I could do with an Omega juicer. And then I drop that in the Vitamix and I put in some carrots and yams, whole yams, and I peel them, but I blend them. So I get that added fiber and protein, vitamins and minerals, untainted protein from yams, raw, but I'm getting a lot of density. So if you're trying to go raw, the only way you can do it, and answer that original question, is you'd have to blend a lot of yams and beets and carrots to get the nutrient density. And I believe it's possible. It's just not easy, because like most raw foodists, they end up having a lot of fruit and a lot of avocados and nuts and things like that. But if you get the right mix and you're training and you're eating a little bit more often, I carry food with me every day for 45 years. I don't leave it to chance at airports. I went to the Long Beach Grand Prix today with my son. I had a whole big bowl of fresh food, and we were eating while everyone was eating junk. Everywhere you go, everyone eats junk. It's our society. It's corrupted. It's horrible. And drugs and alcohol were still open when COVID shut down and churches were shut down. What in the world do we live in? So guys, we got to stand up for ourselves. And particularly, you have control over 2 things: what goes into your mouth and whether you accept a kiss or not. So I hope you're accepting a lot of kisses and hugs, and you're eating the right food and exercising, because Brian's right. Every book I ever wrote on love and lovemaking, you've got to get this one point. It's the biggest miscommunication for divorce. Laura Langmeyer says it's financials number 1, but I'll say number 2, and I think John Gray would agree with me, is when the study was done by Alfred Kinsey hired 4 gynecologists to examine 900 women. He found 0 pleasure nerve endings inside the vagina. So everyone who thinks intercourse is the way to go, will reduce unnecessary pregnancies. We can easily ejaculate outside of the vagina, but you have to please a woman first. And I'm the first to say, besides my book, She Comes First by Ian Curran, and, oral sex, water sex, people say, oh, but what about the microbes? If you have a healthy biodiversity, you have every kind of microbe in your body. Your body handles it. I have regular STD tests. My tests come up clear, even though I've gone down on so many times. I won't even get into detail, but it's such a healthy thing. You actually get vitamin B12 from going down on a
vagina up there.
True, Brian? Vitamin B12?
Absolutely. I did a 2-hour lecture yesterday on the real truth about that. And let me tell you, the only question I have for you, Doc, what does a fermented chili taste like? I've never had one of those.
Yeah, it's really good.
We do a lot of fermenting, including fermented chilies. Kimchi is also very good. I strongly recommend weaving that into your diet rather than necessarily acidophilus. So the fermented foods are a very good way to go, including chilies.
You got to have a lot of
They
cilantro
taste
around for
hot.
your breath.
That's what
Your
they
breath's
taste.
a little strong for your honey, right? But otherwise it's really important for the gut. Yeah, and the chili depends on the taste, the type of chili. Sometimes they're hotter, like jalapeno chilies fermented, or they're a pico de gallo type chili. I love chilies because the longest lived people also have a lower infectious disease rate because their lungs are clear because they're coughing up things. That chili helps to expedite, express all this junk in people's lungs. You have to have clear lungs. Breathe through your nose when you're exercising, not through your mouth. Become a nasal breather. That's a big breath. We haven't even talked about that, right? Really important. So while you're making love, you got to learn how to breathe through your nose while you're licking, and everything's going to be good.
Okay, if everyone would give a final 30-second wrap up of your final thoughts and how people can get in touch with you, stay in touch with you, get your books going forward.
Well, I'll start. I have written 13 books. You can go to drcousens.com or treeoflife.mn.co. And my big message is, what's our purpose of life? And we should eat in a way that supports that purpose. So for me, the key is eating in a way that you become a superconductor of the divine. It enhances your communication with the divine. Now, I'm a 99% live food vegan person, and you can get stronger and more healthy and more flexible with age. That's why I made the point about the 2,000 push-ups and the 100 pull-ups and all that. That's with age getting better. So we also need to let go of the thought form that you get weaker, less fertile, less energetic with age, and understand we can improve with age. So, but the main point for me is eating in a way that I have constant energy, and it's all helping me become a superconductor of the divine. That's how I look at it. That's the purpose part of it.
Thank you.
I'll go next. To summarize, eat whole plants and avoid oil. And what else? You can learn more at drjosh.com, drjosh.com, and check your toxin levels, your petrochemicals, your DDT levels, etc. It's real, it's important, and it's been a pleasure to be part of this panel. And thanks again to Steve for organizing this.
Thank you. And again, all the bios and if you go to therealtruthabouthealth.com to the bios of each of these speakers and click on it, it has their website information. And if you go to books, it has their books.
I just want to support one point. When we eat lower on the food chain, we get significantly less pesticides and herbicides. The pesticides, herbicides are in the animal fat, higher up on the food chain. So we naturally are going to go way less with the toxins in our system by eating lower.
Yeah, and then I agree, because the higher you go up, the bigger the fish, the bigger the animal, the more the toxins. It's actually concentrates over 1 million times more toxins when you're eating animals instead of compared to plant-based food. So my new book coming out, for anyone who likes, just email nickdphd@gmail.com. You'll get disease hacking. I have the book Blood Doesn't Lie on Amazon, Acting Be Gone for Good on my website and Amazon, Mastering Love, Sex, and Intimacy, Amazon, and my website, nickdelgado.com, and Simply Healthy Cookbook, oil-free recipes that I've traveled all over the world. Took me 15 years to gather these recipes. People love the food. We did food demonstrations at the end of 6 weeks, and people, when they first had the food to eat in our classes the first week, they weren't used to the no sugar, the no oil. And by the 6th week, they said, "Oh, this is a wonderful recipe. Try my recipe." It was the same as our recipes in our cookbook. People's taste buds must adapt. It takes about 6 weeks to get off the addictions to sugars and fatty, greasy stuff.
Brian, why don't you go? You look like you're ready to go.
Let Udo go first.
Okay, Brian. All right. Okay, if you want to have the longest, highest quality, most healthy life, then you need to do whatever it takes to live in line with all of your nature and in line with nature. And there's 8 parts to that. And fundamentally, on the food part, fresh, whole, raw, organic, mostly plant-based, and maybe at one point it'll need to become local again as well. In terms of what needs to be in that food, it should be, the foundation has to be whole foods. And there are a number of add-ons, and definitely oils have, in my experience, been a very powerful add-on for, especially for energy, for skin, for pregnancy, for athletic performance, for liver and kidney function, for heart function. I mean, literally they play roles in every cell in the body, and they're essential for health, both omega-6 and omega-3 in the right ratio, made with health in mind, packaged in glass, because oils actually leach like plastic leaches into oils, and you don't want that in your body.
Thank you.
I'll start number one by thanking you, Stephen. This is the 9th year you've done this. You've dedicated your life to this. So I want to just take a moment to honor you with all of this panel. And it's been a delight to be with, but all of the people listening all over the world.
Thank you.
Yes.
Stephen, you're much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The state of life was never meant to have disease and disorder, discord and disharmony. You know, what's going on right now as we stream this globally is unconscionable, where literally savagery is occurring. What has happened to all of humanity over the last 2 years is unthinkable and criminal activity at the highest level.
Yep.
That I equate to the worst warriors, the insane people who created the worst wars throughout history. I think it's equal to that. I think humanity is lost, and we've become more sheep-like than we've become, independent and responsible. And if you know anything about scripture, I've read all of it, every type you can imagine I can get my hands on. The one commonality is they all say we're made in the image of God. Well, it doesn't look like we're living at a godly level now. To me, it looks like the opposite, to be honest with you. But I'm still an optimist, because I see when things get really bad, they will rebound. But it's going to take some courage. It's going to take you realizing that every choice you make, the thought, number one, the first choice you make is what you think and how you process your thoughts. And then, of course, when you get that balanced, you'll know what to eat, because you won't be thinking intellectually anymore. Your heart is going to lead you to into what to eat. I finally looked back at my history, and that's what happened. I read all I could read, and I didn't always agree with it, but I couldn't disagree with my own heart. And the next thing we have to understand is longevity doesn't only come from eating and exercise and positive attitude. If you look at the most important study ever done on longevity, centenarians and super centenarians, they looked at 1,710-year-old people. It was a New England study. And they actually now, thank God, I honor them so much, to say community is just as important as being a vegan and exercising. Sure, we vegans all champion veganism, yeah, but if you don't have somebody to share life with, and I'm not just talking about intimate partners, friends. Look at the study that was done at Brigham's, and they basically showed people who were lonely throughout life died generally 15 years sooner than the rest of it. That's equivalent to smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So we're finally growing up and maturing in the scientific community at some level, at least some of the scientists. It's not always being propelled by who writes the largest check and gives it to the biggest university. And it's sad for me because I love to read research. And over the last 20 years, I've only been looking at meta studies, because you really can't trust independent studies. The first question I always ask, who funded that study? So when they say coffee is good, guess who funds that study? When they say alcohol is good, who funds that study? And so it's great for my colleagues to always say they want empirical evidence and it's foolproof. I take that with tongue in cheek. I think practicing with humility and practicing with integrity, not that we're going to ever be perfect, really brings you to a place where you see things much clearer. And when you see things clearer, you don't always need somebody else to tell you what to do. You start to be a big boy and a big girl, and you know what to do. So God bless you, Stephen. God bless The Real Truth About Health. And God bless all of these men that are dedicating their life to help all of you change yourself in the world that we live in.